to the Department of Communications and various bodies and agencies within that department, and you can be part of that conversation at Morning Live SABC. But we're going to start taking some questions from our audience that's here at this venue, and we start at table 23, where we'll find Bongani Mabizela. He has a question. Let's go to Bongani.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning to the Minister and the esteemed panel. My name is Bongani Mabizela from Fourways Group. I'm also representing the Black Business Council, the voice of business. My question is very short and direct. In particular, I'll be very biased to the business sector. In line with a very good story to tell, which is the current buzzword, I want to know what is the strategy, in particular from the SABC, to showcase what business is doing out there, especially to our communities. I believe there is a very good story to showcase both on our TV screens and also on radio media. What is the strategy of the department together with the SABC to showcase that? I think other media houses we've seen in the past, I think they're slightly probably above the SABC insofar as showcasing what business is doing in making an impact, positively so. Of course, in partnership with our government as well, in many cases on such. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mabizela, before you sit down, I just want to get some clarity. Are we talking about profiling, showcasing, or really getting free advertising?
No. It's not shocking. It's not profiling any business. That is, of course, on a cost mechanism, which, of course, if you want to profile your company. But this is different. That's why we are partnering with government in particular to make a difference to communities out there, especially in the areas where we are rendering services in different areas across the country.
All right. Okay. Thank you. See you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I should tell business good story and respond on your question. I think it can be SABC. What is SABC? SABC, it is a public broadcaster, including yourselves. You as business, you need to engage SABC and come with ideas. How do we make South Africa to be better? But dealing with business, because I want you to invest in business, and you should have confidence in the SABC because SABC is superb. And I want to say to you, we have changed the policy. We are working on changing the policy within the organization, even making sure that business people, different people benefit from different provinces. Because previously SABC, big companies only benefit from SABC. And what SABC will do, they will make sure that for more than 3 years, they close the tender, what they call it a tender. For us, we are saying that it is unfair for people who are emerging. Example, if you are a new lawyer, you want to do business with SABC, you can't wait for 3 years for SABC to allow you to do business. So we have been dealing with this issue with the CFO, James Aguma, to make sure that you as business people, you have access to the SABC anytime. So we are just dealing with those policies. But what is important for me, I want you as business to engage SABC. I'm not a business person. What I know best is content. What I know best is technology. So what I need you as business people, this is your public broadcaster. Come to us, let us engage, give us exciting ideas so that all of us, we can contribute to what you are saying. Thank you very much.
Okay, Minister?
Yeah, let me come from the policy perspective. The chairperson of Brand SA was going to say a lot on this. Her apologies, she's busy coordinating. You know, we are hosting the World Economic Forum in Cape Town next week. But I've had engagement with Brand SA to say, as a country, unlike the other countries, we don't have a well-coordinated business communicators forum. I've since tasked the Brand SA to make sure that we form that forum. I'm raising this because even when we go abroad, it's on individual basis that you always find the same people going out the country. It doesn't benefit business, and we know as business you are organized. So the issue that you are raising is very critical. There is also on your part, all of you, you've got your corporate social responsibility that you do on a regular basis. I'll give you a typical example. We were in KZN in September with the president, wherein his various ministers were deployed to various locations. Out of the poverty that we experienced there were businesses that came to the party. Some, I'll say Vodacom, you donated a telecenter to a community in Willowfontein. Others are building houses for the poor communities there. I'm trying to say to indicate that this, as business, you've got a role to play. And these are the type of the initiative as government we also need to brag about, talk about them to say, this is what business in South Africa is contributing. So in this way, in communicating, because we are also doing a lot of things as businesses, but they are not communicated, as Mr. Motsoeneng is said to say, come to us with ideas, then we'll be able to assist, to support you. There's also the so-called Play Your Part initiative from Brand SA, wherein other people in business, they are doing good. You don't have to be a multi-million company, but you can also do something good that impacts on the life of people. So I think we'll have to follow up that one you are concerned, Mr. Mabizela. Come to the parties and when Brand SA call you to come.
All right. I think the next question is going to be for you, Ms. Nkomo. Let's go to Jonathan Ramotse, table number 21. Okay.
Good morning, Peter, and also to your panel. My name is Jonathan Ramotse. I'm the head of community relations at Soweto TV. So, Peter, my question goes to the chairperson of the MDDA. You know, one of our responsibilities is to develop the people in our community. But without proper funding, we are unable to do that. So my question is, what is your strategy as the MDDA, your funding strategy to community television stations especially?
Okay, so he's concerned about the funding for community television because it plays an important role, and they can't do what they need to do in their communities without capital. How are you helping them?
Well, I mean, absolutely. The community television sector is very capital intensive. I mean, it requires a lot of resources. In fact, if we dedicate our resources to community television, we'll probably only fund 20% of both print and broadcasting and give it to community television. And it's something we're really battling with. And I think the point I was raising earlier is that we have minimal resources and organization. I mean, we have a budget that is less than 50 million for us to actually pursue such a noble cause in society of ensuring that there's integration in terms of language, race, and as well as access to media. Certainly, that's a question that we are grappling with. We have, however, funded 2 community television initiatives in other 2 provinces. And amongst those, we were actually testing the model from our own funding strategy to see what are the areas where we can fund community television. I mean, however, we remain committed in funding areas related to content. But in terms of other costs, it's an exorbitant exercise. And I do think that perhaps on behalf of the community television sector, I would really like to call for other partners to come into the party and really support that sector because they play such a crucial role.
Right. Is there another community television, community radio station here? I just want to hear your voice as well as part of this conversation. Who else is here? Okay, there's a hand over there. If I could get a microphone to you. And so we know funding is one of your challenges. What else could you get assistance with to make sure that community broadcasting continues to flourish, but beyond that is sustainable?
Thank you.
If you could just start by telling us who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. My name is Colin McKenzie. I'm from Tswane Community TV, Secretary General for ACT SA, Association for Community Television. Yes, there has been problems in terms of the funding issues, but however, I think with the new structures at the MDDA, we're starting to see total and a holistic engagement in terms of the processes that are happening. It is a mammoth task, but it's a work in process for us that's happening. And what's critical to us currently is that the engagement process is very positive. And then moving on to the GCIS in terms of the funding model. We're looking at a funding model that will keep us and help us to become self-sustainable instead of going always out there and becoming a begging bowl. We're working very well closely with the DDG there, and I think there's a guarantee from both parties that 30% of the advertising revenue will come towards community television. And I think that's a milestone which will help us in order to achieve those goals in terms of the content, in terms of the reach, in terms of also the upbringing, in terms of skills, in terms of development. And also the partnerships that we're looking in terms of the SABC, sharing the skills in terms of development and taking it further in terms of equipment on the side of the SABC. So those are other things that we're looking at. And I must say that those are the good stories that we have to tell. Whereas in the past, that was non-existent. And with going forward with the digital migration, we are involved in those kind of processes, and we hope and we believe that we will meet the deadline going forward without any hindrances. And I'd like to say thank you to the panel up there and the support that we're getting so far to date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Digital migration, I want to come back to that because that keeps coming up quite a bit. And we've seen, I think it was last week or so, you've had to go to court over this issue. So the question I have for you, to encrypt or not to encrypt, what are the pros and cons? And you've chosen not to encrypt. Tell us why.
Okay. This week, the matter was being heard in the High Court. I think it was finalized day before yesterday when the judge has received judgment to that effect. The policy itself, as we say this for government, because you see, free to air, it's free. This is a constitutional right to have access to TV. That's number one. Then if you are to encrypt and then you are denying an old lady somewhere in Mashashane village outside Polokwane, because then once you encrypt it means then she must pay. And SABC content, you see, the SABC is a public broadcaster. The right, you infringe the right to access to information. So that was the rationale behind that, but I think I have got the technical, Norman will be able to deal with that to say, that's what we wanted to achieve in terms of our policy, to say people must have access because they need to be empowered. For them to make decisions, they need to have this information, especially the one that comes from government. That government information is free of charge. And then we know, as Mr. Motsoeneng has indicated, SABC has got a reach out there. All over the country, people are able to access SABC. We don't have a situation where in the people will be prevented to watch TV because there's this so-called encryption. And then also on the definition of encryption, it's a security feature. It didn't necessarily to say that you need to lock out people from them. It's a security feature. We said we had to define that to say what is a security feature, because our worry was that we shouldn't have a situation wherein our set-top boxes will go out of the country and they'll be utilized outside the borders of the country. It's like when you have your cell phone, it's assigned to you, Peter. You put in your PIN code, and then once it's stolen, the other person cannot utilize it. So that was the rationale behind that on the decision. But the other colleagues, the technical guy will be able to add on that.
All right, so there's sufficient safety features. Yes. I mean, piracy is the other thing that I think was raised in other parts of the continent. Will these boxes be able to stop people pirating?
Exactly, that's the rationale behind about the security feature that we had to put it. So, because encryption is another term, the broadcasters will be able to talk to you about it to say when you encrypt. So there was this clarity on the policy that we had to make to say, what do we mean by encryption? Yeah, basically that was it.
All right, COO, do you want to add?
I'm glad because the policy that the government is working on is flexible. Those who want to have encryption, they can have encryption. Those who don't want, like ourselves, SABC, because we are a public broadcaster, there's no need to have encryption for us. And when you talk about encryption, you're also talking about, you also pay royalties. It's very expensive. So for us, we want that money to allocate to content. But also what is more important from SABC, public, okay? Public. I need to repeat, public. There's this notion that when you pay TV license, you are paying the salaries of the employees of the organization. Because I need to clarify that. When you pay TV license, you pay for content so that we are able to contribute to producing content. And also, SABC, we are only getting 2 to 3% funding from government. For us, it's nothing. And I want to stress that. People are misleading people to say SABC is public funds. And so, where's public funds? 85% of the SABC, the workers of the SABC generate that revenue. It's a commission. And these guys, they work hard for this organization to be sustainable. When you talk about, people can argue about the TV license, and I want to explain. TV license contribute 8%. And if you contribute 8%, you can just imagine, in totality, government contribute 11%. In totality. So we SABC, our personnel, we pay them by commission. And if you work for private company, you can even be paid better than SABC. Yeah. Because if you generate revenue, you also get commission. So I just need to clear the air that government is not giving us enough funds, actually. But Minister, well, 2%, we also welcome it. Yeah, we also welcome it. But I just want to clarify that. Okay. And also what is important for SABC, the reason why I'm saying we are doing very well. And we want to also to thank business people because they contribute advertising, sponsorship. And actually people who do business with SABC, they are over the moon. They know the benefit to do business with SABC, and we are glad for that.
Okay. Whilst we're on this, the SABC has an interesting model in terms of being a public broadcaster and also a commercial broadcaster at the same time. Around the world, the model's slightly different. Public broadcasters fully funded by government and licenses. And I'm just wondering, is it not time maybe to look at that and say, look, let's the private sector share the advertising, and you, Minister, give the SABC the money it needs just to concentrate on public broadcasting and not worry about having to come up with the commercial imperatives.
You're very right. And that has been the talk throughout, to say we need to increase funding for the SABC. But you know, we compete for that fiscus, for the fiscus. So for now, like you're indicating in terms of the model, with this amendment that we are saying we're going to put in place to amend the entire Broadcasting Act, these are the issues that we need to look at, because now it's an area of qualification again on your part as the SABC by the AG, the mere fact that you are not able to separate the two, the commercial. And most of the time, the commercial part of it is funding the public service of the SABC. So these are some of the things that it's priority number one on the agenda. The DG can explain further to that effect to say what are we going to do about it.
Let's hear from DG.
Okay? Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks, Minister and Peter. I think Minister is right. I mean, the issue of increasing the funding for the public broadcaster has been on the table for some time now. And I think we've come to acknowledge the fact that SABC is not a revenue collector. It has got its core mandate, which is to broadcast. That then says to us that as a department, you need to come with a better, efficient funding model, which will assist the SABC to focus on its work, but at the same time, it doesn't have to worry much about how it's funded, as it were. And I think this is what the Minister committed in Parliament to say this year. We will develop a funding model for the SABC, which is going to look at all issues in relation to commercial and public, as it were, so that we can get the SABC to focus on its job of broadcasting. It must not worry much about issues of funding and other things. It will be good. I mean, if the SABC, within the fiscus, we can have 100% funding for the SABC, you can imagine what it can do in terms of what the SABC can do to achieve. That question, also the earlier question about people in Stillport not having access. Again, it goes back to the issue of the funding, because you need to be able to roll out the infrastructure at the same time and all of those things. So it's one of the priority areas that I think we're looking at this year, and I think we will be able to engage the public around how do they want the SABC to be funded, as it were. Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Let me just clarify some of the issues here. For me, from where I'm sitting, I know the Act talks about commercial and public, but the Act contradicts itself, because if you are saying commercial, it should be commercial. But the Act says that we need to also contribute to public, which means it's contradiction. The Act should change so that we are a public broadcaster. We focus on the public. It is contradiction there, because there's no commercial from where I'm sitting, because we are forced to fulfill the mandate of public, although we are saying it is commercial. It is not commercial. From where we are sitting, practically it is not.
Okay, all right. On that note, we'll take another quick break, and then when we come back, we'll go straight back to our audience. We look forward to hearing from Lawrence Bale. So stay with us for that.